Welcome to Helping Organizations Thrive. Today I have Matt Atkinson on the show. Welcome, Matt.
Morning, how you doing?
Good to see you. And I'm just going to tell the audience a little bit about you. You're the Managing Director of Utilize Mobile, a mobile device and network management specialist. You've worked in the telecoms industry since the early 90s as a consultant working for large enterprise organizations, and you're a founder and CEO of a number of technology and telecom businesses. It's your bag, and I'm sure that'll come into the conversation today. It will bubble over, I'm sure. And we are looking to explore a mindset for a growing business and how you're doing that yourself, the reset mindset, and also how to create a mindset and environment to, I guess, stimulate innovation within businesses to help those people around you to do that as well. But before we get into that conversation, the first one I ask is, what do you love about what you do, Matt?
What I love, I think for me, when at school, if only you go back kind of whenever that was, 30 years ago, I always had a passion. I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to essentially drive my own way forward. I really was not great on the academic side, disliked that kind of structure. So what I love about business is that ability to really drive our own way forward, to create our own plans, to go and test and to find new and interesting areas to get involved with. So it's almost that lack of formal structure that you might have in a corporate environment that really I thrive on.
Okay, so is it just the curiosity of business that got you into that? Was that what it was?
I mean, my dad was son of a coal miner, left home at 15 and started his own business quite young. Unfortunately lost that business in the recession in 1990s, like 1991. We lost our house. We were in a pretty bad state at that point. But I always knew I wanted to do that. It's probably driven by him, and as we're all influenced, aren't we, in some way, shape or form by parents, but always knew I want to be in business. And so, just from early stages, just wanted to earn some money and get on. As I've grown up a little bit, only a little bit, obviously, I've got to a point where obviously, actually there's a lot more excitement from running and building a business and investing in different areas. So, it started probably with kind of material side, earn some money, get out there, but it's grown since.
And I guess you've probably seen quite a number of stages of business over the last 30 years in terms of and also how you might have also changed yourself. I mean, you must have noticed a difference even now today. If you're going to start a business, your perspective is very different.
When I sold my last business, it was about 2010, and I set up. I kind of had this inkling in the back of my mind. What was it? Fluke? Should I go and do it again? And right or wrong, I actually went and decided I was going to do a startup all over again and get going. In hindsight, probably what I should have done is bought another kind of foundation business and built from there. And I think probably the big lesson I've learned over the years, and you kind of only really learn this later down, so maybe it's helpful for some of the younger entrepreneurs listening, but partnerships and building those relationships and leveraging other people's assets and skills and knowledge is going to get you there an awful lot quicker than literally trying to build the whole thing yourself. So maybe a little bit late in the day, I've learned some of those lessons, but certainly I think that's probably the big difference between then and now. Now I'm all about partnerships and how we leverage those to grow.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good. And I guess as your mindset changed as well over that time in terms of how you tackle businesses, how you go about it.
I've always had I think my principles have remained a constant throughout. A lot of what I do is helping large businesses. That tends to be the area that I'm involved in, but it's all about, getting fair deals for them, negotiating with some of these kind of Goliath organizations like your BTs and your Vodafones, and always kind of principle of fairness within it. So that's guided me, but actually the way we go about business, the way that we manage has become a lot more kind of professional. It's a bit haphazard, if we're honest, 30 years ago when I first started, age 20, whatever it was, 23 or something like that. But it's, over time, a lot more structured now. And, it's different.
And when you obviously start a business, obviously it's just you and you just have to worry about yourself. And now you employ people and therefore you're leading people. And the scope and the dimension of things changes significantly, because it's not just about you and you can just crack on and do something. And so how has that changed in terms of leading people and bringing people into that equation?
So I think in my previous business, we went from, well, 2 of us partnership to about 50. In this business, we're 20 at the moment. And I think it's recognizing different stages. So the team that you have to go from, whether it's founder or 2 partners, for instance, that they're growing a business, it's all kind of revolving around, let's say, that those leaders to start with, their plan, their actions day to day, and everyone's kind of moving in that direction. As you grow that business, it probably works to 8-10 people, somewhere in that type of region, and at that point your business needs to fundamentally change to then scale to the next level, and that's what you kind of recognize over time, is those different levels that you get to, the different people you need, the type of people you need really to get an idea off the ground out of nothing, are not necessarily the same people that you need to run and scale a business. And I think it's the challenge is always then, as you grow, finding where your team then fit into the next stage of growth, because you can't just carry on in a linear fashion doing things the way you were in day one, just with more of you have to put in the structure. So obviously you have people that are operational focused, you have people that are sales and marketing focused, you know, in our case we have technology that we build, so you end up kind of working around teams, and that's very difficult for a business, because probably the hardest bit of a business is go from 6, 8, 10 people to 40, 50 people. That whole, it's defined quite sometimes as the desert. You've got to have all the attributes of a large business, you've got to have all the functions of a large business, you're going to have all these processes, systems, ISO accreditations, goodness knows what, within your business, but you're still a very small business and the resources are obviously tight. So it's a really challenging point. So I think recognizing those different stages and making sure that in your business, you know what you're going for. Are you trying to scale up to become a high growth, bigger business, or are you, want to run a successful small business? And often people confuse the two things. I think it's all about growth. And of course, with that growth often comes a lot of pain, problems, issues, challenges to address.
Yeah. And just going back to your mindset, and obviously it'd be good for you to just describe it more, your mindset, but also how do you, I guess, instill that? How do you create that mindset that those people around you are in a similar ways of thinking, going about business, and just what you've talked about, how you're scaling or growing or more sort of just being a successful business. So how do you go about that with your people?
I think, you can hear this from other people. You've got to have kind of your culture and what that's based on. For us, we've always had a firm view that the sector we work in is dreadful at customer service, and if we're going to differentiate ourselves, it's around customer service, and having that ethos within the business, as an underlying guide to everyone is really important. I think the second bit is then innovation is important to us, so giving people that kind of freedom to test, to try, to break, to fail, is really important. So we have kind of principle, which is, draw a line and move on. No one benefits from, trawling over the past or negativity. And I'd rather that we fail, but we're open and we admit that and we change it. And we know that there are not repercussions for that. We have to have a discussion about what went wrong, why it went wrong, and sort it. But I think that consistent approach I've always used is kind of draw a line, move on. Now ultimately I find that the vast majority of the team will get that. They'll work with it. You're always going to have some people that don't fit that agenda. Maybe they're not right fit for your culture, for your business. You're never going to have a perfect environment. But if you have a very open one, for me, that's always worked, because it's given people that freedom to test and to try. And at the same time, know that if we do fail, as long as we own that failure and we then say, okay, how are we going to deal with it as a team? We know that the next stage is going to be more successful than the last, because we've improved upon where we were. No business is going to, move forward or grow unless they're constantly improving as well.
So do you see failure as a way of moving forward and expanding your business?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
And you're sort of embracing it.
Yeah, it'd be like doing your driving lessons and expecting to get in the car first time and pass your test, wouldn't it? The fact that your learnings come through your failures, and eventually you reach a point where in business you have a viable product, one that people are willing to part their hard-earned money for, and you can deliver a good service, but you have to continuously iterate that. So it's failings the whole time. So within technology, I mean, those that know technology will know that we're consistently building things that that don't work, that are tested or are great and work, but people just don't want. And they're failings as well, because it means that we fail to understand our customer base correctly, or their needs and requirements. So yeah, I think it's like everything. It's a natural part. I think in the UK, especially, we're not particularly open to failures. I don't know, it's a cultural kind of thing, stemmed in hundreds and hundreds of years worth of kind of history. But we tend to feel like we've got this thing where failure is not necessarily allowed. Certainly in business, you'll know that in business, people that fail in business, there's an utter stigma still attached to it, which is completely wrong. The whole point of business is all about risk. It's all about people putting up their time, effort, money to try and make a change. And so for me, yes, failings are a really important part of business, as long as you learn from them and don't keep repeating them, obviously. So
yes. Because failure is all about, well, you're pushing boundaries and innovating and expanding your business. You will fail, as you say, because you're going into new areas because you've never been there before, or trying something new. So you're bound to fail. I think the key point you made, last bit, is making sure that we stop, learn from it, and create. I always have a mindset of saying it's not failure so much; it's more about feedback. It's just the feedback on our journey, and we need to think differently about this and go about it in a different way. And so we learn from it, and that's the key thing: is learn from it. Have you got an example of this year where you've, I'll say, failed spectacular, but quite a big failure has created a massive learning for you as a business?
Do you know what I mean? My team will hate me for saying this. We found that COVID's changed everything, and you're going to have to do different ways of working and different processes. We look to expand. We built the business up to about 3 million in-house from referral and from networking and things that we knew. And we thought, okay, what we want to do is now see if we can scale this from 5 then to 10 million. And so one of the things that we looked at is, how do we build our own direct type of activities? And I think, if we're perfectly honest, the sector that we work in is large corporates, difficult to speak to the senior decision makers in that space. And as you'll probably know, they everyone's trying to get to IT directors now, because it's a massive expanding area. And I think fundamentally our approach of what we thought would work there just fundamentally hasn't. I mean, no two ways about it. We've tried all of the things that you might imagine as a business that might be successful, and they haven't. And then we pivoted that whole thing and said, okay, let's just stop and reset. Same people, same team, and then start to move and say, well, where have we been successful in partnerships in those areas? And go back to some of the things we probably knew already, but then double down on those different ways, and they're turning out really well for us. So yeah, we chucked some money away in the process of learning, but what we did learn was certain approaches just simply don't work from us, so we don't want to keep spending money on those, and we needed to change.
And how do you create that environment, apart from just telling people, because that's in some ways it's not,
that helps,
which is obviously important. But how do you create an environment where people feel, I guess, safe and comfortable to almost push the boundaries and then make a mistake and go, Matt, I tried this, didn't work. It just didn't, and come to you, and or also an environment where they're happy to challenge perhaps what you're saying. You're the founder and own the business. Challenge some of your thinking of approach. How do you create an environment that people feel safe?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, for me, part of it, you got to lead from the front, haven't you? Which is, if you just chuck objective grenades over the fence and targets and things of that nature, and say to team, right, you get on, you got to, how they're going to learn, how they're going to get there, especially in a small business. So I think leading from the front and being part of that team. So I love that side of it. I love getting involved with the innovation. The thing is, I can't code a single line of software. So in a business where we build software, and my previous business is exactly the same, you have to then have a team that you can trust that can go and execute that. But still being really heavily involved within it, and then between us challenging each other. So they'll go away, they'll develop, I think having that honesty to say when something comes back, say, look, this isn't where we're trying to go. Let's go back again. Look where we've got to. Have that open dialogue and trust that it's not a personal criticism. It's to get to where we need to get to deliver the product and the service that our customers need. We're going to need to do this slightly differently, and having that bit where people don't take it as personal criticism, can be difficult. But if you can get to that bit of trust where everyone's on the same page, that really is key to it, because without that, it just comes across as people throwing targets, objectives, criticisms when it doesn't work, and the fear of failure. They know that if we fail, it's not a failure. It's just it's a hurdle we've now overcome. We find the problem, we we correct it, we move forward.
Excellent. And just expanding upon that whole, I suppose, pushing the boundaries. How else are you creating, I suppose, a culture or an environment that people are really wanting to think way outside the box and think and explore things that perhaps they've not even imagined they could explore, beyond the failure bit, just really the, shooting for the moon, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that we have like a kind of Google R&D style team where they deploy literally people whose only job in life is go and test and build the weird and wonderful in the world and see what happens. But we do try and create space for that within the business. So we were developing a product a couple of years ago, which in simple terms allowed you to create connectivity in remote locations. So it's like kind of using mobile services, but you literally plug it in and it create Wi-Fi for you, collect up to the mobile network, and do all sorts of security and things like that. By giving the team that freedom to go and play with it, they actually created a brand new product over the last year, which stemmed off it, but creates a secure corporate environment on a home workers network. So for instance, where you are today, I presume you're working from home. You've got a home broadband network in there. But if you work for a large corporate, you're reliant on that same infrastructure. So the team were able to go and build a brand new product for that space, literally by, playing, testing, breaking different technologies, pulling them together. I never set them the objective to do it. They just came back and said, hey, we've built this thing. What do you reckon? And we said, okay, fine. Well, look, here's some money. Go and play with it. Go and really break it and invest in it. And we found something decent and then put it into our proper R&D plans after that. So
you're obviously given freedom to explore then, aren't you? And that's great.
Go and break things, go and spend some money. We don't want to go and gung-ho with it all, but I mean, they know that there's money available to spend on that side of it. We allocate a certain amount of, our revenue to just pure R&D activities, because unless we're doing that, we're just the same as everyone else. We're just kind of reselling someone else's product or adding a little bit more service. So I think in any business, think about, what are the things that, could be improved. And even if you can't develop tech yourself, there are plenty of companies that can build applications and services that could streamline customer service and get you people thinking that way. And suddenly, lots of really good ideas come out. And also talk to your customers. What are the things that they find frustrating with how they have to deal with organizations? And there's a technological answer in there, is kind of my view to it. Obviously that's my area, but sure there's other areas too.
Yeah, and I'm sure your area has obviously become more to the forefront. As you say, people are working from home, hybrid or some sort of connotation. I'm working with a business that is all about remote first. And the whole having the right setup technology-wise and secure, I guess that's the important thing, isn't it? It is vital. So just going forward, really, as we head into the new year, what do you, I guess, see are the challenges from your businesses, or how are you going to take your people with you in those challenges over the next sort of 12, 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, we although we have a number of services in the business, we'd always run them under kind of one unit until now. I think as we go from, say, 20 to maybe 30, 40 people, and we look to double the revenues again, what we're now doing is we're now putting that more of a division in place. So we're creating clear full owners, or like internal, head of services for each of the different areas that we work in. And we're starting to drop those that really services, that is, that don't have that growth. within them. So I think, having explored and found lots of different opportunities, different products, we're now focusing down on 3 core products where we know we've got growth, we've got opportunity. Then we're raising 3 of the individuals to run those, obviously reporting into myself and the other partners, but essentially running those, giving them the freedom to build their own teams within there. So almost like running 3 smaller versions of the business within it, because I think for us, we're not looking to go out and raise funding. We're not looking to, do some, vast scale up or a buy and build. We're looking to do more of what we do. But I think we've got 3 really good products there. And so that's what we've done anyway.
Okay. And just sort of coming towards the end, what keeps you awake at night in your business?
But do you know, more often than not, what keeps me awake at night is if I do happen to wake up, then lots of ideas and things that we could do start coming into my head. They're kind of ones. I have to get a pad out and start writing them down. So I think I've always been right or wrong. I don't believe in having large amounts of debt and leverage from that side, and although that's been hugely in fashion in the last 10 years with very low interest rates, there's always a price to be paid for excessive debt, and ultimately the thing that takes a business out will always be probably leverage debt is going to be the number one thing. It's very difficult if you have a business that's not got itself in that position. So I think what concerns me a little bit about the last 2 years is almost a perception of lots and lots of free money is being issued out and there's no price to pay for it. So in smaller business, they had that £50,000 interruption loan. We already know that there's vast waves of organizations that basically took that money that can never repay it. There's large amounts of those loans that were issued possibly fraudulently to organizations that simply, weren't even businesses. People were buying, rubbish businesses for £1,000 and getting a £50,000 loan and closing them down. And with the bigger businesses, we took some funding. At the time, we didn't really know where things are going to go for growth. It's very manageable for us. We've got a little bit of debt, but I know a number that have taken vast amounts of debt. And the problem with that is then you get the downturn that's inevitably going to come. Furloughs now finished. We're going into very uncertain times, as we speak today, whatever the next iteration of COVID is coming along. No one quite knows. And I think that for me is the one thing that's always been in the back of my mind. And that goes back to my childhood. We lost our home when I was 18. And probably that's one of the reasons that I kind of got into business very early, is that we just had to go and make a living and get on with it. And that was all driven by the fact that interest rates became 17% overnight. And, if you remember those days, it was pretty hideous. Today, people think that interest rates are going to stay where they are forever. This is just simply not true. They'll stay there till the system starts to buckle under the weight of it. And once it starts to increase, there's always a price to be paid. So I think keep your business, sensible in terms of debt and leverage is always the thing that I think about. Maybe that's held us back a bit, but I think it keeps us a lot safer at night as well.
Well, yeah, and I think that sleeping at night is important. as much as growing a business is fantastic, you've got to look after your own self-care. And if that one way is being more robust about your debts and managing that, then that's important. I think I agree with you. I think a lot of people have leveraged debts too much, and I don't think they sleep very well, and unfortunately very anxious. But also, it's great to hear that you wake up in the night with ideas. And,
well, that's the main thing that keeps me awake. Yeah,
that's great, because and it sounds like you're full of ideas and a business that is thriving with ideas and growing as well, which is brilliant. And obviously, you foster that by the fact that you allow people to go off and create new technologies that you didn't even ask for. I mean, that's even better, isn't it? So it's been really good to speak to you today, to Matt. How can, if people want to get in touch with you about your business, about you, how can they connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, via LinkedIn is probably best. So I don't know if you have show notes, or on my site, mattatkinson.io, where there's kind of a bit more about my story and my contact information.
Brilliant. Well, we will put that in the show notes anyway, your website and your details, so people can get hold of that. And thank you for coming today.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.